Geber, Nolan Dalla, Oklahoma Brian is on the phone from Oklahoma and speaking to us through the miracles of this sort of weird digital box thing we have is Nick Webster, who is, yes, in the box. Not in the penalty box, because we don't have those yet in global football. We are, of course, talking about the World Cup. And before we get to our picks, because we said we would give you our picks for the Monday matches, and let me just run down what they are very quickly. It's South Korea, Sweden, it's Panama, Belgium, and England, Tunisia. And I tell you what, a lot of people might say these are, three of the sort of slightly less interesting matchups than we've had. If you're a fan of any one of these teams, of course, they're not. But I wouldn't say any of these I would consider mouth-watering draws. Before we get to that, a couple of pieces of housekeeping. We'd like to welcome you to the show. And, of course, if you are watching this show, would like to see previous episodes, or we do a lot of specials and all this sorts of stuff. I don't know what this sorts of stuff mean, but, I mean, we do a lot of video specials, and we just got a wonderful thing on you sat down with Doyle Brunson, the poker legend. We've got a lot of stuff like this that you can see. Great content that you can see at fifthstreetsports.com.
fifthstreetsports.com. Go there in case you've missed any of the shows and want to watch Nick Webster and Nick Geber talk about the World Cup. We've got 3 things up there right now. We're talking about the best live dogs, the favorites, some surprises. You've got it all there at fifthstreetsports.com.
Right, and you can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/fifthstreetsportstalk. And we can have a little Twitter action going on. I know it sounds dirty, but it's really not. You can find us at Fifth Street Sports. All right, before we get to these matches, where was I going with this? Let's take care of the matches.
Where were you going?
I don't remember. I'm going crazy. Nick Webster,
South Korea, Sweden.
Let's get to these
go.
matches. South Korea, Sweden. Now, this is interesting. These odds are courtesy of betanyesports.eu, where I encourage everyone to head to immediately and sign up, place a large deposit, and get 50% on your bonus on your deposit up to $1,000 by using affiliate code Fifth Street. But South Korea currently plus 339, Sweden plus 108. Now remember, this is a Swedish team without a certain Zlatan Ibrahimovic, who has been carrying this Swedish team for a long time. They will, of course, be disciplined and tight, and they will be conditioned and ready to go. But at plus 108, I think there's a mistake on the odds here, Nolan, because I looked them up, but they've both got pluses in front of them. Plus 339 for South Korea, plus 108 for Sweden, plus 219 for the draw. What do you say? You bet all of them.
Well, what you're suggesting maybe is, and before we go to Nick and Brian, it just sounds like you talk about a match maybe made for the draw. It's this one.
I actually would likely agree with you. I like the draw on this, plus 219. Nick Webster, what thinks you?
I actually like Sweden this one. I think South Korea, they don't travel particularly well. And Sweden have this habit, and we've spoken about this in our World Cup preview shows, they have this habit of always getting out of the group. And more often than not, they get out of the group as winners.
Yeah.
Very cohesive team. They really come together. There's a lot of character, a lot of discipline. I don't see a high-scoring game, but I definitely see Sweden winning this one quite comfortably.
All right, so he says Sweden wins it comfortably. Nolan says a draw. I like the value on the draw. I'm not sure we'll get a draw, but I like the value of the draw at plus 219. Sweden at plus 108, though. That seems to me like a nice bet as well.
I mean, I've got a spare $20 in my pocket right now, and it's going to be put on those magical Swedes. Zlatan or no Zlatan, and to be honest with you, I think the fact that Zlatan's not there, it takes such a distraction away from the Swedish team. They can get down to doing what they do best, and that's playing soccer.
All right, and the total points on this one is 2. Over or under on this one, Nick?
I'm very tempted to go under.
Yeah, I am an under on this one as
What's
well.
Oklahoma Brian say?
Brian's going to go with the draw.
He's going to bet the draw.
That's my default.
Right.
Yeah, when in doubt, that's Brian.
When in doubt, bet the draw. What about the over-under, Brian?
I think I agree with you guys. I think I'd go under as well.
Okay. So we've got one draw.
By the way, I didn't get a chance to mention this, and I don't know if you guys did, but in the comparisons of Ronaldo to Messi to Maradona, don't forget, not only did Ronaldo beat Messi on the field yesterday, he also beat him in tax evasion, 20 million to 18.
That's true.
And and Maradona, don't forget, the greatest of all time, $48 million tax evasion.
Well, there you go. You see, no one beats the great Diego Maradona.
Yeah. So just trying to break things down scientifically.
Well, it's interesting. If we talk, I tell you what, let's finish with the matches, and we'll come back to the discussion, because I do love this discussion about great athletes, great players, and what they mean to the sport. But let's keep going. The next match is in the English Group G. It is Panama, Belgium, the draw, and the over and the under. And for my money on this one, Belgium is going to win this game.
Maybe the biggest mismatch of the entire first round.
There's really no value here. The over is minus 140. The under is plus 125. The total points 2.5. There's no value. I mean, the draw is plus 683. I can't see this being a draw. The Belgium team's very strong. For me, I see Belgium winning this one, and at minus 549, there's nothing here for me. So for me, I'm just going to pass on this one. Nolan?
Well, this is what I call, in the NFL betting, we would call this a bridge jumper game. In other words, you line up at the bridge and you dive off if Belgium somehow gets upset or draws. I mean, Belgium's so far superior. It's like, again, I'll use the American analogy, it's like the New England Patriots playing the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
Cleveland's not going to win this game, and again, Panama's not going to beat Belgium. And Belgium, by the way, this is a team that's capable of winning the whole thing. Let's make it very clear. Panama just very lucky to even get a bid. So the question is, does Belgium want to run up the score? If you look at some of the betting, you've got to lay goals. Does Belgium want to win 2-3-0, 4-0? I don't know, but I will say that this is just one of those games that prohibitive favorite Belgium, rightly so. Nick Webster?
Well, as Nolan rightly puts out, Belgium, one of the most stacked teams in the tournament. They have quality in every position. I think this game is actually important, though, for one reason. Who's going to come first and second in this group? And conventional wisdom says it will be Belgium and England. They meet in the last group game. I believe whoever scores the most goals against Panama, and I'm projecting Belgium and England wins, of course, but whoever scores the most goals out of these two teams will win the group and potentially have an easier second round game. So I expect Belgium to put their foot firmly on the pedal to ram it down Panama's throat. And if they don't score 3 or 4, I think it will be a disappointing day at the office for the Red Devils.
And does that mean you like the over? Does that mean you like the over also?
Well, I do kind of like the over on this one, but I've seen Panama play a very, very defensive game where they've packed it all in at the back. And when teams do that, if that's how they come out to play, it can be very, very difficult to break them down, even when you have the best team in the world out there playing. So if that's how Panama come out, and as Nick was pointed out in the last hour, the nice thing about this World Cup is that's typically not how teams have come out. I don't put the Panamanians, I wouldn't write that tactic off for the Panamanians. I wouldn't be surprised if that's how they come out to play, to try to slow
Nick,
down.
I would say this, though. I don't think the Panamanians are good enough to park the bus.
That's possibly true, too.
If we were looking at a fine defensive team, a Denmark, a Sweden, someone who really knows the art of defending
and Egypt. Egypt.
Yeah, and Egypt and can hold out for 90 minutes. Uruguay is another great team that can just grind and grind and grind. Panama aren't good enough to do that.
Yeah, I think take the over on this one. Panama could potentially pack it in, but this isn't even a shadow of a half decent Panamanian team like we've seen before. This is one of the weaker teams in the entire tournament. So take the over. I wouldn't bet much anything else on this. Certainly wouldn't take Brian Allen's draw. Brian, you're not taking the draw on this. Tell me you're not taking the draw.
Plus 670. Taking it.
You're taking it. I've actually got plus 683 at BetterDaySports.eu. So you see some value in the draw. So, Brian's just draw. That's fine, Brian. Let's move on to the next one, shall we? You're going to take the over?
I laid the goals in Brazil, for the record.
Okay, but Brian, are you taking the over on this?
No, because that doesn't correlate with the draw.
That's what I was going to say. The over doesn't correlate.
Right.
All right.
But to be fair, to stick up for Brian, if he'd taken the draw in all 7 games so far in this tournament, he'd be way ahead because he would have got the draw from the Argentina-Iceland game that paid off massive. So, Brian, there's a method to your madness.
I appreciate it. Thank you. And I should have had a couple more. I should have had the Iran-Morocco game.
That's right. Last-minute goal, 93rd minute.
Rob, I know. I know. Las Vegas Frank was sobbing quietly into his drink.
So typical of a bettor. He's ahead money. He's bitching about the one game he lost.
Right. All right, let's go to the next match. It's England, Tunisia, and Nick. I'm going to just basically say to what you said in the last match, ditto. It's going to be the team that scores the most goals are going to get through off this one. Tunisia, a better team than Panama. Let's say that Tunisia are they are definitely a better team than Panama. They are still not one of the stronger teams out here in the tournament, but they are a better team, and they may well be capable of parking the bus. But this young English squad, with all the speed and pace and conditioning that they have, and I believe self-belief and lack of pressure from the English press, I think they're going to win this one, Nick. And England are minus 230. But the draw, Brian Allen, is plus 369. It's looking a little juicy, maybe, but I do see England winning it. It's just whether it's an over or an under. The under is minus 132, so obviously the bookies are thinking not too many goals in this one. What think you, Nick Webster?
Yeah, I'm definitely agreeing with the bookies on this one. I think a typical England opening performance in World Cups is generally like a 1-0 or a 2-0 win. They're not going to set the tournament alight in the group stages, and I think Gareth Southgate, the England manager, is very aware of the expectations back home. They're so much lower than they usually are, and I think just getting out of the group is the main factor. And as we know from World Cups past, you can't lose the first game. I expect England to get the 1 goal in front and then just really try and kill the game off and show a bit more professionalism and a little bit more, I'd say, cutthroat mentality than we've seen from England teams in the past. But England to win this one, I'm going to go 2-0.
2-0. So let's take the under on this one and take England. England is at minus 230, not much value. Nolan, how are you going on this
Well,
one?
I think Tunisia has some value here, and one of the reasons is we talk about there's always a surprise team that comes out of Africa every 4 years, and Nigeria essentially getting just a really horrid performance today. Nigeria losing, and who out of Africa has done anything here? And I'm thinking Tunisia will. This is England has a history of not at least since 1966. When they won the cup, not performing particularly well in the cup. I know I'm, relying too much on history here, but in terms of value, maybe no expectations on Tunisia to upset here. But I do believe that if there's some value in taking the 2 or 3 way, in other words, you take a goal and a half on Tunisia, because I think Tunisia will cover that goal and a half, where you essentially are about even money taking Tunisia plus the goal and a half. You can get Tunisia to about even money, because you're right. England scores a goal, it's locked down, and Tunisia also capable of surprising.
All right, very quickly, 10 seconds. Oklahoma, Brian, you taking the draw?
I will take the draw, and I thought I read about a week ago that the heat could be a factor in this game. I believe it's in Volgograd, and I know that a week ago it's factored to be pretty hot, like close to 100 degrees.
That helps Tunisia.
Right. Guys, we've got to go to break. We'll come back and wrap it up here. Fifth Street Sports, Sports Byline USA, SB Nation Radio.